Oh, nobody's here. Okay. Good evening. Trying to unmute everybody so you can say hello.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
Oh, Dave's on video now.
Hey, how about that?
Yeah. Is that
I'm
on your
running through
phone?
my running through the phone hotspot.
Ah, good, good.
Took me a while to put it together.
Yeah, it's something every day for me, so.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm learning something new all the time. I'm just going to get rid of that.
But that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, makes life interesting.
Yep. Just need a glass of wine.
Maybe when this is over. Okay, let's see. Why is that? Okay. So Mark Scott's on. Let's see. Oh, Hetty's here. Yay.
Will I see their thumbnails?
You should if they have their camera on. I'm going to try to turn everybody.
Okay.
There's Rocio. Let's unmute, unmute, unmute.
There's Rocio. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, you're there.
We see the top of Hetty's head.
Oh, Hetty's head. Hello, Hetty's head.
Your camera's pointed to the ceiling, Hetty.
Oh.
I seem to do this. There she is.
There
you are.
Good. All
Hi,
right.
Hetty.
I don't have my makeup on.
Oh, me either. That's all right. This is. I usually use my little photo because I have house hair.
You're so good to see you guys.
Okay. Dave Russell was on, but I don't see him now. But we'll go ahead and just open with a moment of getting centered. How's that?
Sure.
That's perfect.
Okay. So let's just close our eyes together and just take a deep breath in. And just give a little pause at the top and gently relax that breath. Another deep breath together. And just slowly release. Giving ourselves a moment to connect mind, body, and spirit. Becoming present to this moment and this time. Connecting with one another in our intention to remain connected regardless of distance. To keep our mind filled with positive thoughts and opportunities for improvement and openness and creativity. We're so grateful. Just feel that gratitude filling our hearts for all the opportunities available to us in these quiet moments. And just in this moment of stillness, we just say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And so it is.
And so
Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Anybody want to check in? I can pause the recording for a second so we will share the screen and we'll talk about good and evil today.
Oh, I love it.
There it is. All right, let's see. And then we'll start slideshow somewhere along the way here. Mandy and I still have to kind of work out how we're going to get a little bit better production quality on our Sunday
Okay.
morning. There's some lag time while I'm figuring out my way through this, but each week I feel a little more comfortable.
That's great.
Yeah. So good and evil. Wow. I've been, in this last month and a half or whatever, I've been talking about a lot about the hero's journey. And that hero's journey is such the archetype of good and evil. And I don't know if you remember when I've used some quotes from Carl Jung. I didn't put them in the presentation tonight, but basically he's talking about, that over focus on one other is what causes that break in the psyche. And really the focus too much on the light is causes a break from the darkness because we're in denial of what we see as darkness. But there is no good or evil. As we said earlier when we were talking, it just is what it is. And there's a little bit of a misunderstanding about this whole storytelling archetype, antagonist, protagonist model. Yes, because, and for good reason, because there are quotes like this in the Bible. And he turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." And the reason that this quote is misunderstood because people do have that concept that there's Satan. But this was actually a really important time. We're in the Holy Week of Easter, and we're going through that whole story of the buildup of Jesus teaching his disciples and going around doing miracles and healing people. And so there was a lot of buzz happening about who was Jesus and, was he the Messiah? So this quote comes right after he's having a meeting with the disciples, and he's saying, "Who do people say I am?" And the disciples are saying, "Well, people are saying you're the Messiah." And he said, who do you say I am? And they all agreed, "Yes, you are the Son of God. You are an expression of God," as we would say in unity. And so he confides them and he says, when we go to Jerusalem, things are going to happen. And he knew, he had this awareness that this was not going to go well. And if you remember on the Sunday slides, I had the image of Pontius Pilate coming in with his big parade, and then Jesus coming humbly on the other side of town. That's that perfect conflict arc building. That's always, it's in the storytelling of it. Yes, there's evidence that Jesus did go to Jerusalem, and we know that he was crucified, but the storytelling of it builds that good versus evil kind of a mentality. But what happens is, in this quote, it's actually Peter that Jesus is calling Satan, because Peter pulls him aside and he goes, "No, you can't do that. You can't go and sacrifice yourself. You can't put yourself in danger." And because Peter's thinking of that earthly level, don't do that, and Jesus is saying, "This is mine to do." That's why he's saying, get behind me. You're a stumbling block to me. You're focusing on what is. You're focusing on the facts rather than truth. So you're setting your mind on things that are not of the divine, but on the human experience. And that's what's taking you away. And that's exactly what you were commenting about earlier, Rocio, is, you know truth, and you know who you are and your place in this world, and you know that you're an expression of the divine. So you don't have to be in fear. Yes, we have to observe social distancing and wash our hands and take precautions, but it's a whole different experience to then take it into, we have to hunker down and find an enemy, and somebody, the Chinese did it, or Trump should have done something different. All of that rhetoric that's just building stress and anxiety, that's the human focus. But when we focus on, you know what, I'm going to take this time and I'm going to join with friends online because I can do that. I'm going to learn how to do that so that I can be with people and have conversations in a safe way, not out of fear, but out of respect for what's going on in the human form, but holding to the truth of what is in the divine. So in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, it says that Satan, the term Satan, is the deceiving phase of mind in man that has fixed ideas in opposition to truth. And that's the adversary, the liar in wait, the accuser, those terms. The word enemy, when people say something, about enemy, I always think, I don't think I've ever had an enemy. I might have been disappointed by someone or saddened by someone or had my heart broken, but I never considered someone an enemy. That's just a term that's foreign to me. But it goes on to say, Satan assumes various forms in man's consciousness. In man's consciousness, not in man's reality, in man's consciousness, among which may be mentioned egotism. And we need ego. I don't care for it when I hear people talk about the ego like it's bad. Ego is that part of our ability, that mind part of us that lets us know how to survive, gives us clues, helps us to protect ourselves. It's not a bad thing. It's just that when we only focus on that, just like Jesus was saying, when you're focused totally on the human experience, when you're completely in your ego, anything out of balance, anything out of balance. But a puffing up of the personality, we talked last week about individuality versus personality. So when we put too much emphasis on our human characteristics, our human self, and forget that individuality, that individual expression of God that we are. And the opposite of this, the self-deprecation, which admits the accuser into the consciousness. So sometimes we're our own worst enemy, in other words. And the accuser makes man believe that he's inherently evil. And there are teachings, in certain denominations that teach we are worms of the dust and inherently evil, but that's not truth. And it's not the consciousness, of course, that we hold in unity. We believe in absolute good. So the adversary, as far as the revealing word, which is another unity resource, the adversary is the great universal negative whose power is derived from the unlawful expression of man's own being. Now, the term unlawful does not mean illegal. It means spiritual law, holding the higher truth. So we know that there are spiritual laws. There are also mathematical laws. There are laws of the universe. But when you're holding to an expression of man that doesn't fit in that, when you're thinking of man as separate from that expression of good in the world that we know as God, that's the unlawful. But to focus on the separation. And the serpent, which is the image of the snake, is Satan is sensation, suggesting indulgence, and a lot of sensory indulgences are considered evil. And again, anything, if you have a cocktail, you have a cocktail. If you have a bazillion cocktails, then you're overindulging in that sensory experience, and it can be harmful to you. So anything that brings us out of the nature of balance, it goes beyond the law and fixed by creative mind. Creative mind embraces all things. So I used this one Sunday. It's, you know, kind of that Darth Vader image of the good and evil. And we call things dark, evil, or bad, but in fact, they're not. I mean, a darker, cloudy day is not the opposite or evil compared to a sunny day. We appreciate the sunny day more because we just had, well, like now we've had how many days of cloudy days? But when the sun comes out, we're all going to have bright faces and be excited about it. But that contrast is in nature. There's contrast in nature in all forms. And that is a normal thing. I mean, it's part of the whole. Tony Robbins made this, and Tony Robbins is kind of out of left field, I know, but I like what he says here. He says, what bothers most critics of his work is the goofiness. One reviewer said he needed to make up his mind if he wanted to be funny or serious. And he said, my response is that I will make up my mind when God does, because life is commingling of the sacred and the profane, good and evil, and trying to separate them is a fallacy. So I like that comment. You know, it's like, yeah, we can have an innocent heart and still have some risque thoughts sometimes if we're human beings. And we can't, there's no need to beat ourselves up for being both, for being all of it. And this is just an image of the yin and yang, which of course is one of my favorite images because of the message of balance that's in it. And I stretched this picture out so it's kind of funny shape, more more egg shaped than really a circle, but it's still balanced. So, you know, it's masculine and feminine, which does not mean male and female. They're both, a man has masculine and feminine, as does a woman. The positive and negative, you know, that's other than a charge of electricity, you might decide what's positive or negative in your life. And the more you decide things are going to be positive in your life, that's what you find more of in your life. And then he has a whole list here of sun and moon and heaven and earth. Of course, we know heaven and earth are one. We know that heaven and that concept of hell, we might talk about that next week, the whole concept of heaven and hell. But you create it by your own thoughts and your own actions. It's not a place that you leave this earth and go to, either one of them. You can have the experience of heaven or hell in this existence in your everyday life. But there's a whole list here of, you know, intellect and intuition. To me, they seem maybe like they're opposites, but quite honestly, my intuition informs my intellect, and my intellect helps me to put my intuition into perspective. So I wouldn't want to have an imbalance of that, because if I was all intuition, then I wouldn't be able to integrate what I understand on a metaphysical level, on a knowing level into my life. And if I was all intellect, I would miss a lot of clues, which I do anyway, but I would miss more clues about life. And of course, awake and sleep. We need both. We need vivid awake time and we need deep, restful sleep. So that looks like, is that my whole presentation? Maybe it is. Okay, I will stop sharing now and just open it up to thoughts and comments. Rocio?
Well, I was aware of Jung, the Tarot, and the hero's journey, I follow the tarot not like my God, but it helped me. It was a tool for me to understand where I was, or what could I do, or what was the imbalance to get into it. So I've I absolutely, I mean, I hear it, and I can't stop hearing it from your lips, from a quote, from something beyond me. I will hear it differently, or I will remember it better. Our understanding starts to grow with more and more information, I feel. And the more and more you put yourself in meditation and in the reading of books that talk about the truth and ways of achieving it, is like it's fantastic. I mean, I'm very blessed, because it's what it is, like you say.
It's what it is.
And I'm very happy that the choice I made to come back here and to go back to, like, wow, because it's perfect. It's perfect exactly for me at this moment in so many ways that I'm very grateful.
I think what you mentioned is really important, that we do have to feed our mind. We have to read positive things. We have to, our human nature will naturally go to something fearful, because it's trying, that ego part of us, that reptilian brain, is trying to protect us. So if it's important that we do read, and we come together with friends, and we have uplifting conversations, and we reflect back to people loving and positive things. Those are all ways that we prepare ourselves. We make the soil ready for good to grow.
Yes.
Yes.
Dave?
Yes. To me, good and evil is a really kind of a moot point, because what it really comes down to, for those who believe there are such things as good and evil, are those who are not understanding that we're all here on the earth school to face our challenges and to do the best we can to learn from them. None of them being positive or negative necessarily, but whatever it is that you need to work through as you're in the midst of your life journey.
That's true. And the sooner you look for the good outcome, the quicker you find it, whatever the trial is or the situation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Miss Hetty?
Yeah, I just went to, reminds me on Reverend Petty's definition of evil. If you spell it backwards, it's live. So we all live, and so we have to experience the negative and the positive.
Mm-hmm.
So to grow, we need both.
Yeah, because the contrast makes us appreciate the better days. And, if you wouldn't want to eat
well,
all
without the
sweet.
contrast, nothing exists. I mean, if there's not light, you're never going to experience dark, because you won't experience the lights. It's, around and around we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very true. Mark, Dave, I see a 210 number. I don't know if that is Eugene or someone else. Anybody else have a comment they want to share?
Well, I was just thinking when Hetty talked about evil is lived backwards, that actually reminded me of what somebody else said. It's like it's living backwards. Evil is living backwards. So it's just one of those, I think St. Paulson said that. It was like he's always coming up with little twists on words and things like that. But basically, I agree with the basic unity idea behind it. There really is no good and evil. Those are labels that people put on things. And I think Shakespeare said, "There is no good or evil, but thinking makes it so," or
Thinking
something
makes
like
it
that.
so. Mm-hmm. That's true. I mean, even the label, because even in preparing for this evening, I started thinking about the word good, because that's equally a label, just as much as evil is a label. But we do say God is absolute good. And I don't know if I really, I'm questioning that right now, because God is absolute. God is principle. God is the outworking of universal law. So God is not necessarily good.
God is compassionate awareness.
God just is. I mean, God is compassionate awareness when you need compassionate awareness. God's in everything, even the things that we label as other than good. If we call it evil, if we call it mean-spirited, or whatever we call it, there's still, once you look underneath motivation and human experience, it's
But it
still,
all leads to a positive end. I mean, he's all good in the fact, if you recognize the fact that what you're facing day to day in this life is for your benefit and your evolution and your growth. No matter what it is, it's all a matter of perspective and recognizing the fact that whatever it is you're facing is for your good, as long as you face it and work through it. I mean, he's all good in that way.
all things work together for good.
Right.
And that, that it's an energy. So whether we name it a good energy or a bad energy or an evil energy or a divine energy, it's just energy. And then we determine what influence we have on it.
To be able to say that God is not evil is saying there's a place that God is not. See, God is evil. God is all. So
right.
when you call it good or bad, if you say that is not God, then you're saying there's a place that God is not.
Well, the energy expressing is still that same energy we call God. Whether it expresses in a way that we see as evil or we see it as good. It's just God expressing. And then we determine our interpretation of it.
A big part
Exactly.
of my outlook on these things, I call the three omnis. God is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Well, so I spent a lot of time thinking about what that means. And it means he's everywhere present.
Right.
He's on the battlefield. He's in the man that's robbing the castle. Whatever you want to put into it. There is no place that God is not, or else he would not be omnipresent.
But that also includes the table that I'm sitting in front of, and a flea that makes you scratch, and it's all an expression of that energy that takes form. And that energy that takes form cannot be good nor evil, except that we label it that, including good. It can't be good unless we label it good. It just is going to express. So we want to keep our focus on the expressing of good, because that is our higher nature. But what is the definition of good? To Dave's point, it all works out and it all brings us some form of blessing and learning and growth and evolution. So it's all for our highest.
We just need to escape the need to label things.
Yeah.
I mean, why does anybody have to dwell on good and evil at all anyway?
Because that's how our minds are conditioned that way. With our experience, in our DNA, back to the caveman times, the perception. And it's psychologically, we've been entrained with these archetyped images in everything. I mean, but the thing is, in Unity, when we study stories in the Bible or any ancient text, we study them from the perspective that we're all the characters. We're not the good guy or the bad guy. We're all of the characters in the story, and we're all of the action in the story. So we're all aspects of what's being expressed in various forms and ways. So it's all a reflection of who we are in this world, which is an expression of that which we refer to as God.
You're mentioning the caveman brought an interesting thought to mind. You know, I bet you those who were primitive cavemen who were not really socially organized, if they ran into something good or bad, they didn't see it as good or bad. It was just what was happening. I mean, they're living like animals do, and they're accepting what is because it's what it is.
I watched a video, I can't recall if it was online or in some show or something, but some cities in India, I think, but where a lion had come in, and these were not people with lots of cows and lots of livestock, but a lion had come in, eaten one of the cows that belonged to one of the, but nobody got upset. They all heard the screams. They came out, but then they didn't chase the lion off. They just followed it and observed it. That's all they were doing, was just noticing what had just happened, which was a natural cycle of life with no judgment at all. It was amazing.
That the lion didn't eat.
But
Thankful that the lion did not eat one of them.
they got pretty
But
close.
instead ate the cow.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason to rejoice.
Yeah,
I mean, really,
Yeah.
it's better than losing your kid or something, right?
exactly. I mean,
Maybe.
You, depending on the kid, huh?
Yes, exactly.
We won't
And
label
put him
that.
outside tonight.
We won't label that thought evil. Yeah. Yeah, it's all, you know, whatever's going on, we can say how terrible it is, or we can just be aware. And the most thing, you know, one thing that we're also conditioned to do is make all of our assessments about other people, right? Those people that are acting this way or whatever. But really, all we really have dominion over is our choice of our own thoughts and our own behaviors. And are we being kind and loving? And are we sharing? And are we, you know, or are we getting ourselves into contraction with fear and, you know, stocking up and grabbing every last something? I mean, it's crazy that you go to the grocery store and they have to have labels with limits on the amount of things you can purchase. It's like, normally you would purchase the amount that you need in any given moment on any given day. But now it's like, oh no, you can't take too many boxes of this or too many cartons of that. And it's a funny thing the human mind does. But that's exactly what Jesus was talking about way back then, is that way in which we indulge our mind. And Mark, remember we were talking about what Mary said about these things, you know, fear. And fear can be healthy in letting you know that there's a lion. But the indulgence of the fear, you know, you want to have a healthy awareness and compassion for fear, because it's a message. It's a message to our body. It's a message to our psyche. But the indulgence of it can cause us to become ill and to behave crazily. And that's a label. That's a judgment. Yep, crazy.
It's true.
You know, maybe it makes sense in people's minds to clear out whole shelves, try to get as much as they can. I don't know. But that's where we are in the world right now, and it's important to observe our own tendencies and our own feelings. And so we have about 15 minutes or so left. Do you want to do a meditation? Do you want to continue talking?
I would love to meditate on this side. I vote for meditation.
Okay.
Meditation is always good.
Are you with me, Etty?
Let's sit back and get comfortable. Close our eyes together and take a deep breath in and release. One of those things that we're always working to keep in balance is our heart and our head. So today we'll borrow a meditation from the Heart Math Institute called Heart-Head Coherence. So let's take a moment and bring to mind a person, a place, a moment in time where you felt immense gratitude. Recall that moment in time and just reconstruct what it is that you see. And if you reach your hand out, what will you feel? And as you're breathing, what fragrance is in the air? Is there a taste in your mouth? What do you hear in this moment when that gratitude is just flooding through your veins? Recreate with all your senses that moment. Maybe looking at a baby's face or sitting on a beach or on a mountaintop. Just let yourself really take it in and indulge your senses. This experience of gratitude may even put a little smile on your face. Now take that image you've created in your mind and move it down to your heart center. You may want to use your breath to kind of create that motion, that movement from your head to your heart. Just allow that gratitude to just begin to vibrate, to become alive in your heart center. Just filling your heart. You may notice a light beginning to emanate, a warm feeling, with those feelings of gratitude just merging with that sense of self. Focused in your heart, but filling your heart and then moving out and filling every cell in your body. Notice how quickened and alive all the cells in your body feel. Energized and healing. And as you breathe out, allow that energy to move out from your body just an inch or so, equally in every direction. That energy of gratitude and appreciation moving just 6 inches out, then 12. Then a couple of feet. Breathing in and energizing that heart center, and breathing out, allowing it to move further, further and further. Just allowing that gratitude and appreciation that you've created, you've generated, originating from you, moving out into the world. Now let it move from our earth out into the universe, equally in every direction. Just allow that energy to keep expanding. In truth, you are an infinite being. There are no boundaries. Just going out into the galaxies, beyond our imagination, beyond anything we know. With our awareness in the infinite, the awareness of our appreciation and our love. Infinitely abundant, endlessly available. Ready for us to generate any moment. We simply bring our focus back to our heart center while keeping our awareness in the infinite. And with this focus being in our heart, let's take a deep breath in together and release. for this time, for this awareness, for this truth. We simply say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, God.
So it is. Okay.
This is sure a lot more fun being able to see everybody.
Yeah.
I would like to see you too.
It's fun to see everyone. And that was really, I enjoyed that meditation together.
Wow. Yeah.
You know,
Yes, definitely.
it felt nice, just as if we were in the same room.
Yes. 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 With people.
Well, thank you for joining. And tomorrow night, for Tuesday Tenderness, we have a special speaker. We'll send out an email in the morning. My friend Dottie, who was a caregiver to her husband, who is going through Alzheimer's, she'll be sharing about self-care for caregivers, but she'll also read some poetry that he wrote. So it'll be a really, it'll be a really nice evening.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Well, have a good rest of your night. I love you all.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Drink lots of water.
Lots
Stay
of water.
hydrated.
Thank you.
Night.